Wait, okay, that's fine. So learning targets for this class. This is going to be kind of like a higher level class. If you think back to our one-to-many lesson, we spent the majority of the morning just diagramming out what a one-to-many relationship looks like. So I want to take some time this morning to diagram out what a many-to-many relationship would look like. And then I'm going to kind of let you all go to try out implementing this in Rails. So we can see here, this first bullet point that you have here, describe the relationship between a foreign key on one table and a primary key on another table. That's kind of a review. We've talked about foreign keys and primary keys before, but we'll talk a little bit more about that today. Diagram a one-to-many relationship. That we'll kind of do in getting started on the many-to-many relationship. Again, we've kind of already done that diagramming of a one-to-many relationship. Third bullet point, we will diagram out the one-to-many or the many-to-many relationship. And then this fourth one here, understand what a join table is and why we need one. So this join table is, if for those of you that have experience with SQL before, you've heard that word join before. This is different. A join table is different than the command we use in SQL. So it's a little bit confusing. We're using the same word, but they're two different things. And we'll get to that join in regards to the SQL join. We'll get to that on Monday. But for right now, if you have experience in SQL and you understand what a join is in that query language, put that to the side. They're completely different things. Create a many-to-many relationship in Rails. Like I said, I'm going to let you all go. The lesson today, I've kind of set up so that it's more of a tutorial based. So the lesson is like step by step. You can walk through it on your own. So I'm going to let you all go for a little bit and kind of try this out on your own first before I do it in front of you. During that time, it's okay if you don't finish it. I just want you all to like try it out a little bit before I go over it. And then that last one there, interpret the schema. If we have time, I would like to show you just a resource that you can use, a schema designer. And that's super helpful. Like you all have seen when you open up your database folder and you look at your schema, you can kind of see how your database is set up. But there's a lot of resources, a lot of tools out there that help you kind of diagram it out a little bit better and see what your database actually looks like. And I'm hoping that we have time today where I can get into one of those resources and show you kind of a better way to visualize your schema other than just opening up that file and looking at everything that you have there. Vocabulary, foreign key, primary key, one-to-many, those are all things that we've gone over before. Many-to-many relationship, join table, migration, we've heard that, and schema, we've heard that. So we'll touch on all of those today. Just to get started, I used to have this a little bit more in depth, but I just want you all to think about these questions for this class, this warm-up. So what is the relationship, the current relationship between songs and artists? Actually, I already said this. Let's do this. I'm going to change this up a little bit. So I want in your journals right now, I want you to diagram out the current set list database. So that's your artist and your songs tables. So kind of like review what it currently looks like. And then I want you to kind of like, I don't know, kind of doodle on there or draw out what you think the relationship. So let's say add to the diagram, to show the relationship, songs would have two playlists. And this second point here, the second bullet point, I'm not expecting you all to get this perfect. I want to go over this with you, but I want you all to try out just like, what do you think the database will look like once we put in this relationship of playlists to songs? Playlists have many songs, songs have many relationships. So this first one here, diagram out what your database currently looks like. And then the second one, kind of guess at what it would look like if we were to add playlists in. Does that make sense? All right, let's go ahead and let's do 3 minutes, just kind of diagramming out what you would think this whole database would look like if we were to add in playlists. And I'm going to drop these in your channel. go ahead and finish up last thought that you have. Josh, did you have a question?
No, I was just going to tell you you were muted.
Thank you. All right, and I have a hard time. I'm unable to use two monitors when I'm using this whiteboard thing, so I am just on one monitor. So if I don't see your hand raised, feel free to interrupt me this class and just like say, hey, question, because it's a little hard to manage just seeing one screen right now and also seeing the participants channel. So just let me know if I miss something. All right, so for this first part, we're talking about kind of diagramming out what you have for your songs and your artists to begin with. So I'm going to just draw out kind of just like a simple version of this, since we have done this before. We've done the songs and we've done the artists. And I'm just going to say like this whole white space here, this is my database. And let's go ahead. I'm just going to draw a table here for my songs. And then I'm going to draw another for my artists over here. And just kind of to make this a little bit easier for me, I'm just going to put, yes, we do have play count and length on here. I'm just going to put a title on here just to diagram this out. We don't really need to worry about the song attributes. And then same thing for artist. I guess an artist, we do just have name. All right. So I'm going to put in here, we'll just put a few in here. We've done Don't Stop, Believe In, I Really Like You, Wheel in the Sky. We'll put in some Britney Spears. Oops, I keep clicking the wrong thing. Toxic, put in Crazy. And we'll go ahead and put these over here. So Britney, Journey, and Carly Rae. And then over here, we just have, in addition to all those other attributes that I'm not listing right here, this is also our artist _ID. And Don't Stop Believin' has 2. I Really Like You is Carly Rae, 3. Wheel in the Sky, 2. And then Britney Spears for these last 2. Cool. Any questions on just this like one-to-many relationship that we have so far? All right. The next part of this is, let's diagram out what we would expect playlists to look like. So if we were to add a table in here, let's actually, before doing that, kind of just like brainstorm what our playlists would be. Let's do, we'll say one of them is Party at Mike's. And let's do another playlist for classics. And then let's just do random playlist. And let's say in each of these we have Party at Mike's. Mike probably would have I Really Like You. Let's say he also has Toxic and Crazy. And then classics, Don't Stop Believin', Wheel in the Sky. And then random, we'll just put a few in here. Toxic, and I Really Like You. Okay, my handwriting's getting messier and messier. All right, so let's say that like this is ideally what we want to have for our playlist. We're going to have 3 playlists, and we want those songs on every playlist. And we can see that some of these songs appear on multiple playlists. So I'm gonna first just think about, okay, let's create a table. Playlist is going to be its own resource. So let's create a table for playlists, and we'll have that primary key in there. And let's say that all of our playlists just have a name, so like I have in blue there. So we'll have Party at Mike's. We'll have classics. And then we'll also have just a random playlist. All right, so this is kind of what I would expect y'all to start brainstorming, right? We want another resource. We want it to be a playlist table. And now the problem comes, or the question arises, of how do we connect playlists to songs? Let me hear from you all. What are some ideas that you all came up with, or maybe some of you have read ahead? What are some things that you're thinking? Taylor?
Yeah, I was thinking maybe we could have a column that's an array of song IDs.
Yeah, okay, so if we have a column here, and you're saying, let's have this be song underscore IDs, yes?
Yep.
And then in here you'd have like Party at Mike, 2, Toxic is 4, Crazy is 5. Okay. What do y'all think about this? Is that kind of what you were thinking, Taylor?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay, cool. What do y'all think about this idea of storing an array in this column?
I guess initially I'm wondering if we can do that. Can a database have an array in it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So this is honestly something that I've recently found out that it can. I've always thought that, because this is not the way that we're going to do this, and I've always thought that, okay, this is not what we're going to do because a database can't store an array. The thing with an array is when you are setting a data type of an array, it's going to set a huge amount of storage for this one column, because there could be anything in an array. You can have multiple different types of data types within an array itself. So storing multiple things within a column, I would say, is definitely frowned upon. And this definitely, having an array here, although you can store an array, which again, not suggesting that you do, although you can store an array, it wouldn't be used for reference sake. So this would not be like if you think about when we added a artist ID onto the song table, we said artist references. So that was kind of like its data type in a way, although it was a big int. It knew that it was a foreign key referencing something. Whereas in this case, we can't have all of these numbers. The references within an array is not going to work. Although you can store an array, this is not our ideal way of storing this, nor would it work. So I like this idea. I think that like a lot of people's heads probably went to this of, okay, let's store multiple things in one column. If you think back to, so let's think back to kind of like what we had done over here in the songs and artists table. If we think about like the side that has a many relationship, so artists, or sorry, what am I thinking? So yeah, this belongs to. So a song belongs to an artist, and an artist has many songs. And in order to note that has many, or in order for an artist to know which songs it has, it looks in the artist ID, it looks in that foreign key column. So like Britney Spears, for example, when we say Britney Spears has many songs, and we look at Britney Spears and we say .songs or call .songs off of Britney Spears, it looks for Britney Spears ID within that foreign key on songs. So in order to have this has many relationship, we do need to have some type of foreign key setup. So I like this idea of like, okay, we're going to need foreign keys somehow, but we're not going to store it on this playlists table. Let me go ahead and just get rid of this. And the issue for this is because we want this to kind of go both ways. A song can have many playlists, and playlists can have many songs. And so what we're going to do to kind of get around that and to get this many-to-many relationship set up is we're going to create a table called a join table in between our playlists and our songs that's going to connect the two of them. So in here, here is our join table. And convention around what to name these join tables is just a combination of the two tables that you are trying to combine. So I could call this songs playlists. I could call this playlist songs, just some type of combination between it. It's up to you how you name it. So I'm just going to call it, I think like playlist songs makes a little bit more sense to me. So I'm going to call it playlist songs. This is how it will be stored. So playlist _ songs table.
Hey Meg, just
Yeah,
a quick
Ross.
comment about the pluralization. So the first table is singular and the second table is plural.
That does not matter. The only thing that matters here is that this is plural.
Okay,
But you could have called that playlists songs.
got it.
Yep. And I think that you can look into it a little bit more. I think there might be a little bit more convention around. I've heard before some people say that it's convention to put it in alphabetical order still. But what I see most people do is like, okay, playlist songs makes more sense to me than song playlists or something like that. So it's fine as long as it's just a combination of the two. I think it's fine. So in here, undo, we'll have that ID generated for us. But this table is kind of going to act as like our pathway between each of these playlists. So through here, I'm going to have a playlist _ ID. This is where I'm going to store my foreign keys. And I'm also going to have a song _ ID. Alex?
So to put this into context for some of the people, if you remember module 1, the football project, we had a CSV called game teams. It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could think about that as being like a join resource like this. I like that. Thank you. So let's say for this first one, if we're just kind of like looking down here at these playlists that we want to create for Party at Mike's. So for the playlist Party at Mike's, which has an ID of 1, Party at Mike's has I Really Like You on it, and I Really Like You has an ID of 2. We can also see that Party at Mike's with an ID of 1 has Toxic on it, and Toxic has an ID of 4. Keep going. Party at Mike's has Crazy. Crazy has an ID of 5. Let's take a look at Classics. So for this 4th entry here, Classics has Don't Stop Believin' and Whale in the Sky. So 1 and 3. So Classics 2 and 1, and then also 2 and 3. And it's getting a little tight here. So for random then, we have Toxic, which has a an ID of 4. Random playlist also has Don't Stop Believin', which has an ID of 1. And then our last one here, the random playlist, again, ID of 3. The last song that's on it is I Really Like You, which has an ID of 2. So now looking at this kind of like how this all would work, let's say we took this Party at Mike's, and I'm going to save it into a variable. Let's just say we call it Party. Well, we'll just call it Party at Mike's. Okay, so Party at Mike's, that's our variable that we're going to save that into. And Party at Mike's, or just playlists in general, they have many songs, but the reason why they have many songs is they have many songs through playlist songs. So it kind of has to go through playlist songs first before it gets to songs. So if we were to say Party at Mike's dot songs, let's kind of go through and see like how does this get called? What are we doing? So again, this like dot songs, that's going to be something that you put at your model level to say that playlists, you have many songs, and we'll also have to specify, you'll see in the tutorial later on, we're also gonna have to specify how it has many songs. We'll say something like playlist, you have many songs, and you have many songs through playlist songs, so that it knows kind of like what table it goes through in order to get to that many relationship. So when we call dot songs on Party at Mike's, what's going to happen here is it's immediately going to look into the playlist songs table, and it's going to look for anywhere, any entry in here, any row that has a playlist ID that's the same as Mike's. So it's going to see this one, and this one. It's going to look across here and see, okay, Party at Mike's has the song with the ID of 2, has a song with the ID of 4, and a song with the ID of 5. So then over here, it goes and it grabs that song with an ID of 2, song with an ID of 4, and a song with ID of 5. So the return value here is going to be, again, like an active record association, but it still looks like an array, and it's going to come back as song objects, and it'll have, I'm just going to put these in variables for our sake. I really like you. It'll have toxic that comes back, and it will have crazy. We could also do this the opposite way. We could say something like, let's grab, do we have, yeah, we'll grab Don't Stop Believin'. And let's say for Don't Stop Believin', I'm just going to put this down here. We'll just call it Don't Stop. And if we were to call .playlists on it, the same relationship, again, kind of like backwards here, the same relationship is happening, but in the opposite direction. Songs, they have many playlists, but they have many playlists through playlist songs. Let's actually write, I'm going to write this up here on this diagram. Playlists have many songs through playlist songs. And then same thing down here. Songs, oops. Songs have many playlists through playlist songs. And this part right here that I'm writing down in blue and in pink up here, these are kind of commands that you're going to have to put in your, not only in your database, like have your whole database set up like this, but you also need it in your model to be able to get access to these methods like .playlists or .songs. So in your model, you will say something like this. Playlist, you have many songs through playlist songs, and songs, you have many playlists through playlist songs, so that it knows it has those relationships and that we can call those methods. So in this case, for Don't Stop Believin', we saved it into a variable called Don't Stop. And if we call .playlists on it, let's kind of go backwards and see what happens now. So songs, since we know that it has many playlists through playlist songs, it's going to look at the playlist songs table, and it's going to look in the song ID for any row in here that has the same ID as Don't Stop Believing. So I can see this one here, this playlist song with an ID of 4, and then I also can see this playlist song with an ID of 7. And then looking across, what playlist are those rows associated with? Playlist 2 and playlist 3. So then I can go ahead over here and see, okay, Don't Stop Believin' is on classics. It's also on the random playlist. So the return value here is going to be that active record association acting like an array of classics and random. This is a lot that we just kind of diagrammed out. I wanna open this up to any and all questions y'all have just based off of looking at this diagram. Max?
First off, diagramming skills are very good. Just want to say
Thanks.
that. In regards to the active record stuff, or where, wait, dang it, I'm kind of like losing what I was going to say. Basically, oh man, I'm losing it. I was wondering where in the model we're going to designate like the has many, but like the join part of it, like you were saying earlier, like is that in the model, or would that be in your DB migration, or
Yeah,
something
so
like that?
that's a good question. What you'll see, and I'm just going to kind of draw this up here, but again, you'll see this in the actual lesson. But let's say that let's say this is your model, and this is just your file pretty much. And let's do playlist. So let's say class playlist and inherits from application record, all of that good stuff. And in here, this is where we've had that like playlist. Do you have many songs, right? Has many songs. In this case, we're going to have to tell our playlist class that it has many of this before we can say that it has many songs. So we're going to have to say something like has many playlist songs. So like, okay, playlist, you have this connection right here. And then after we tell it that it has that connection, we can say, now you have many, the syntax for this is a little funny, but we'd say it has many songs, and it has many songs through, we have to tell it like what that connection is through. It's through playlist songs. Does that kind of answer your question?
It does. Still a little confusing, but definitely points me in the right direction.
Yeah,
Sure.
and this, so what this does here, this doesn't make your relationship happen. All it does is it gives you these methods to be able to use just like this down here, dot playlist. I could have also said don't stop dot playlist songs, but that doesn't really give me what I want, right? So this like has many that I put up here in my model. This doesn't mean that like, okay, now this whole thing exists. This is like totally up to you to create, but adding this into your model now allows you to get objects back through that connection.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Antonio?
Yeah, I was just wondering, like with the join table, is it only able to do that with many-to-many relationships for two separate things, or could you have more columns
Yeah,
with
you
other
can.
many?
Let me make sure I'm understanding your question. Are you asking, can I have more columns in this playlist songs table?
Yeah, like if you, I don't know, like if the playlists had many like different programs that they were on or something, so you would need like another relationship that was many-to-many.
Yeah, if I had, so this joins is going to connect two resources, but if I had, let's say, what'd you say, programs?
Yeah.
Or like platforms or something
Yeah,
like
like
that?
if the playlists were on like iTunes and Spotify, or
Yeah.
like just iTunes or something like that.
Then I think that you would have another resource here for programs. And if that was your many-to-many relationship, you'd have a programs playlists to be able to
Okay,
go
cool.
back and forth there.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Derek?
Yeah, I'm just curious, like with in your example in the bottom left, the party at Mike.songs,
Uh-huh.
can we just call, like if you want to grab the artists that are in that whole playlist, like can you call party at Mike.artists? I'm assuming you probably can't, but I'm just curious or do you have to like iterate through every single song, pull out the artist from there?
Yeah,
I'm just kind of curious.
that's a good question. So you're saying like, can I call don't stop dot artists and just see like all of the artists that are on, oh wait, sorry, party at Mike's dot artists and see all
Yeah,
of the
that
artists
one.
that are on this?
Yeah.
So that, again, that like dot artists, that is something that you would set up within your model. Like that dot artist method is something that you would have to set up here. If you like just looking at your database right now, you have this connection from playlists to artists. So something you could do within here is you could say, and this gets a little bit trickier than where I would like y'all to be right now. So if this doesn't make sense, that's totally fine. But this is just kind of to answer your question. You could say something like has many artists through songs. And so now you have this artist that comes back to you, because like this whole connection is already set up, but you can just make an easier way to call it using these relationships, like relationship declarations up here.
Okay.
You
Okay.
also
Thank you. That
have
makes sense.
access to it here. Like you could say party at Mike's.songs. And then I think what you were saying is like, do I have to iterate through all of them and get all of the artists? That's
Yeah.
like another option you could do since songs know their artist.
Thank you very much.
Yep. What other questions do y'all have just from this morning? Let's go, Sage.
Sorry.
You're good.
Is there a reason, and maybe it's just because I'm not quite up on my active record stuff yet, but why wouldn't you be able to call Mike's party playlist .songs .artists?
So in your songs model, you have that a song belongs to an artist. So this .songs, this returns an active record array of all of your songs. And we can't call .artists off of that. We don't have like an actual, in this case, this would be kind of like a class method, that .artists,
Okay.
which you could create yourself if you wanted to. But when we're talking about these like active record relationships, we're talking about calling a method on one of those resources that we have. And those methods that we call in one of those resources are defined by what's in our model.
Okay.
That's a good question. I'm not sure that I fully answered that to like, or like fully unfolded that misunderstanding that you might have. But I think kind of going through today's lesson might help you a little bit on that. Let's go ahead. Let's take 5 minutes. Let's take 10. I think that we're kind of going a little fast actually this morning, believe it or not. So let's take 10, and when we come back at 9:49, we'll go ahead and get started in code. See y'all in a bit. Resume recording. So after we create both tables, we'll go ahead and we'll create the join table between the two of them. And that join table, we're going to have to make sure that we have the references to both of those tables. So this refers to both tables. Okay, so those are kind of like the big picture steps that we need to do. And within that, when we're creating those tables, we definitely have to make sure that we are testing the relationships for all of those tables. So to start, we already have the song table set up. So I have this playlist spec here, and we're describing playlist, and we're saying for this relationship for playlists, we don't need to do any validations because it's just going to have those foreign keys on this. Well, I'm not going to do any, I guess I could do validations for name, but I think I'm just going to work with this relationship for right now. And the very first thing that we need to check is to make sure it has that joins table. And then we can check to make sure that playlist has many songs through that joins table. So I'm just going to start with this one right here. When I run it, I think that was the error I was getting, but we'll run this again. Yep, so uninitialized constant playlist. So that's kind of like a little heads up to me that I need to create a model for playlist. So in models, I'll go ahead and create a playlist.rb, and I have a class playlist, inherits from application record. Leave that in there. Let's run this again. And now I get this like kind of familiar by now, I think, error where it's saying Postgres undefined table relation playlists does not exist. So this is a heads up to me that I don't even have this table in the database. So I'm going to have to create that, and we're going to run Rails G migration, and we want to create playlists. And the attribute, I think y'all just put name on here, right? Yeah. Okay. So Rails G migration, the attribute on our playlist is going to be a name, which has the data type of a string. And that's it. I don't have any references on here because my references, those foreign keys, belong on the joins table. So I'm just going to go ahead and run this Rails G migration. We're creating our playlists. And take a look in my migration folder, make sure that that all looks okay. That looks fine. I'm just going to add timestamps in here. And we'll go ahead and we'll migrate this.
Hey, Meg, should we be adding timestamps to pretty much everything?
Yeah, I think in this set list, we kind of have skipped over it, but I think timestamps is something that is like good to get into the habit of. It automatically updates those timestamps for you. And I think just to kind of give you all like a real world example too, like if you think about, let's say you were to go to your profile on some type of website and it says like, you last updated your account on this day or something like that, that was automatically generated. So it's just nice to have like you created your account on this day, you updated it on this day. So that gets timestamped anytime you create something or update something. It's nice to have. So Rails DB migrate. And I'm going to check my schema then just to make sure I have a playlists table in here now. And it looks like I do. That looks fine. Let's go ahead and run these tests. Make sure that I've kind of gotten past that database issue. And now we're getting to the actual test part. So expected playlist to have a has many association called playlist songs, no association called playlist songs. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy this word has many, and I'm going to jump over to my playlist model and tell it, hey, playlist, you have many, has many playlist songs. And let's take a look at the test now. We have not actually set up this relationship in our database. So now we're still getting a similar error in that like this part here, expected playlist to have a has many association called playlist songs. But if you look at this right here, it's a little bit more descriptive. Playlist song does not exist. So we also need to create this model for playlist song because that's going to be another resource within our database. So I'm just going to copy this and go ahead and create a model for playlist song. And see what we get next. Okay, expected playlist to have a has many association called playlist songs. Still the same thing, but over here we get a little bit different. Playlist song does not have a playlist ID foreign key. So I think before even getting into this, let me just look at your lesson to make sure that I'm kind of going in the same order that you all went in. My go-to for this, looking at this error, is I'm going to go ahead and kind of like put a pause on this test and start writing one for a playlist song model because I know I need to create that. But I want to see how we kind of set it up for you all here. Yeah, okay, that's what kind of happened here too. Let's go ahead, let's do that. Let's put a pause on this test for playlists because what I'm realizing now is I have to create a table for playlist song before I can even get this relationship fully going for playlist to have many songs. So I'm gonna just skip this test for right now and jump into a playlist song spec, which I already created and just kind of commented out for right now. So this playlist song, we're saying that this playlist song table, that joins table, that should belong to playlist and it should belong to song. So if you think about every single entry within, every single row within that playlist song table, it had 2 foreign keys, a playlist ID and a song ID. And that means with that foreign key that that row belonged to a playlist and it belonged to a song. And through that joins table, that's how we have that many-to-many relationship. So every single row within our playlist songs has this relationship of belonging to a playlist and belonging to a song. We have the model made for this. We do not have this in our database, so I think that we're going to get a database issue here. And we do. So we have this Postgres undefined table, playlist songs does not exist. And looking at that joins table, so if you think back to the whiteboard that we had drawing the diagram there, words, we had the joins table had the playlist ID and the song ID on it. Those were our references. So when we're creating this migration, look this up, Rails G migration, we're going to create playlist songs, that's what I'm going to call it. And the only 2 columns that I have on here is the playlist ID and the song ID. So I'm going to say playlist, again, singular, so that it can be called playlist underscore ID instead of playlists underscore ID. Part of this Rails magic is that when we're looking at these foreign keys, we're looking for like a singular word and then an underscore ID. So that's up to us right here, calling it playlist and not playlists. So playlist references, and then also song references. So that's going to create our 2 foreign keys. Take a look at that migration, make sure that looks all right. I'm also going to add timestamps on here just so I can see like, okay, when were these added to my playlist? When was my playlist? This wouldn't necessarily be like updated, but I could also see like when it was added to it. So I'll add timestamps on there. We'll run Rails DB migrate. Sage?
What's the difference between using Rails DB migrate and like the lesson uses Rake DB migrate?
You can use them interchangeably. It's fine. Good question. I think that's come up before. So I'm going to take a look at the schema, make sure that all looks all right. So I have my playlists. That's there. We saw that from before. This playlist songs looks kind of long, but if we look at it, we have our timestamps there. And then these 2, and these 2 are showing me that I have these foreign keys now on this playlist songs table. And so that all looks all right to me. I'm going to run this test again and see if we've gotten past that database issue that we were having of not having playlist songs made. And we should get to the bulk of this test. Yes, okay, so for this playlist songs, we're expecting playlist song to have a belongs to association called playlist, no association called playlist. Same thing here with songs. So we're gonna have to put that into our playlist songs model and say that our playlist song belongs to playlist and it also belongs to song. Again, singular because it's belonging to just one thing. Go ahead and run this. And that playlist song model looks like we have that passing. So if we just go ahead and look again at that test just to make sure we got everything covered. For our playlist song, as far as relationships go, it belongs to playlist and it belongs to song. And that looks good. We have that all covered. I'm going to go back to this playlist spec though and unskip this now that I have playlist song made and make sure that I can get this passing now. So I want playlist to be able to have many playlist songs. And that was passing. And again, in our playlist model, we had this has many playlist songs. we do need to go a step further here because we want to make sure that playlists, we can call .songs on playlist and get all of the songs back for playlists. So the next thing that I'm going to add into this playlist spec is that it should have many songs, and it's going to have many songs. Oops, the syntax for this is a little different, but it's going to have many songs through that playlist songs. And we kind of talked about that in the diagram of like, okay, in order to actually get the songs, we have to go through this one table. So we also have to specify that here in the model to say, playlist, you have many songs, and this is how you get those many songs through the playlist songs table. So if I run this, I have not set that up at my model level yet, so it's going to have an issue with that. Sure enough, it says expected playlist to have a has many association called songs. No association called songs. So that's something that I'm going to set up at my model. And again, I need to specify that it's through that playlist songs table. So I'll say has many songs, and it has those many songs through the playlist songs table. And that part is all passing there. So we kind of look at, let's see if I can share. I unplugged my whiteboard, so we'll see if this is still here. Yes. Can you all see the whiteboard? Thank you. All right, so what we have done so far is we've said playlists, you belong to, I'm not using a pen, so this is gonna get weird, belongs to each of these. And so it belongs to playlists and it belongs to songs. And we got this down of playlists have many songs through playlist songs. So the last thing that we need to do to complete this many-to-many relationship is get this set up, that songs have many playlists through playlist songs. So we have like 2 out of 3 things done so far, right? We got that belongs to, we have the many-to-many going from playlists to songs, but we have to also make sure we have the many-to-many going from songs to playlists. So this is going to look really similar to what we did with the playlists table. So and we already have a song spec made. I just need to add something to those relationships. So looking up here at the relationships, right now I just have that song belongs to an artist. Song also now should have many playlist songs. And then through those playlist songs, so it should have many playlists through playlist songs. And this is starting to look familiar to what we did with the playlists having many songs. Expected song to have a has many association called playlist songs, no association called playlist songs. And then same thing here, has many association called playlists, no association called playlists. So in our song model, I'm going to add to these relationships and say it has many playlist songs first. And then after that, we'll say it has many playlists, and it has those many playlists through that playlist songs. Oops. Playlist songs table. And we have a many-to-many relationship set up. It's definitely something that takes a lot of practice and a lot of kind of like muscle memory in this. And this is something that I think is kind of like, I don't know, a little crux of Mod 2 of just like feeling comfortable with creating these many-to-many relationships. So I would suggest kind of like going through those practice repos that we've kind of provided for you on the exercises page, and also trying this out on your own again if you weren't able to do it during those 20 minutes, just to kind of get that practice down. Derek, did you have a question?
I did, yes. I was wondering, could you go back to the diagram you drew, please?
Yes. Let's find it. There you go.
My question then is regarding this is, if you wanted, say you wanted to find the number of playlists or all the playlists that have a song with a length of more than 50 or something, just an example. If you just call them the active record method on playlists, is it going to know it, or is that where you have to do a join to that table?
Yeah, you could go about that probably two different ways. You could either say like playlist, like off of, so if you wanted to get playlists back that have songs with a certain criteria, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Oh, I think actually I actually asked that question wrong. I think it's more like if you want to find the songs in each playlist that have a length of whatever, then that was my question.
I think if that's the case and you already have like access to that playlist, what I would do is I would call just an instance method off of that playlist, like create your own instance method. And within that instance method, you would have some active record to look through the songs and get the songs under a certain criteria.
Okay. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions after going through setting this whole thing up? Let's go ahead. Let's take, I know I've had you all for a while. Let's take a 5-minute break. Let's come back at 10:39 and we'll finish up that last part, that example with the playlists index page. All right, let's go ahead. Let's take a look at this playlists index page. And I guess before jumping into this, are there any questions that popped up during that time about setting up this many-to-many? Okay. So the last part that we have on here is just an example. I think it's one of the difficult parts with this many-to-many after getting it set up is kind of getting your database set up with all of these connections. So to do that and to kind of just get an example going, I want to go ahead and create a playlists index page, and I'm going to copy this whole test and then just walk through it with y'all. There's a lot that's happening in here. And let's see, we're putting it in a playlists index spec. So spec features, create a folder for playlists. And in there, we'll do an index spec. Put this in there. Okay, let's walk through this. So the playlist index page should display all playlists, and it looks like it's doing a little bit more than just displaying all playlists. So looking at kind of the setup of this up here, we've created 3 playlists. Again, playlist is its own separate resource. We've created 3 artists. Artists are its own separate resource. And then we have all of these songs, which in order to create songs, we need to create songs off of artists. So in order for a song to exist, we need to make sure that it has an artist that it belongs to. So let me look. Okay, so yeah, okay. So looking at these first 2, so for the Talking Heads, we created this one song, another song for the Talking Heads, another song off of Journey, and then another one for Zac Brown. So we have those all saved into variables here. Down here, this is my, so I kind of just, if you all looked at this lesson yesterday, you might have seen it a little bit different. I changed this up today, mainly because when I'm creating these many-to-many relationships in my test or putting things into my seed file or just generating things into my database, in general, this is my go-to way of creating that connection between my 2 tables that have that many-to-many relationship. There's a lot of other ways that you can do this, but I think this one kind of makes the most sense to me. And what it's essentially doing is it's taking a playlist and it's taking a song and it's creating a row on the playlist song table. So creating that connection between the playlist and between the song. So for example, on line 18 here, this playlist song.create, the song is chicken and the playlist is country. So on the country playlist, the song chicken is on there, chicken fried. Also on the jams playlist, we'll have the song chicken and we'll have the song place. And then on the rock playlist, we're gonna have place, heaven, and don't stop believing. I wanna take a look, let's just kind of drop into, let's drop into a pry here and just kind of see this a little bit better. Okay, so seeing what we have access to, here is our rock. We could say something just to show you like another way that we could do this. Let's say we wanted the song, place on the rock playlist. We could also do something like, okay, here's rock, that's a playlist. Rock.songs is currently empty because my pry is before creating all of these playlist songs. So what I could do is I could say rock.songs, and I could also just like shovel in place. And now if I look at rock.songs, I have that in there. So even just like shoveling it into the songs collection creates that entry on the joins table. And I think I'm showing you this just to show you like another option for this. But again, I think that it makes a little bit more sense just to create those entries individually. It's a little bit easier to see. So this is my suggestion to you all. You're also able, like we could also have said something like, okay, here's the rock playlist. And let's say we did like rock.songs.create. We could create a song right off of this, but we would then have to make sure that we gave this song the artist ID in these parentheses. So I could say like title, on the sky, and I could do, let's see, what are the other ones? Play count and length. And I would have to say here, artist _ID is Journey's ID. Or I could also just say artist : Journey. Have that all there. And now if I look at rock.songs, now I have this one in here. And I can also see that like journey.songs has that wheel in the sky now. So the thing to be careful of with this though is if you wanted to add this wheel in the sky to another playlist, you would have to save this into a variable because the return value of this is the song. And if you wanted to put it into another playlist, you'd have to kind of like shovel in that song object into another playlist. So again, just another reason to kind of opt for doing it this way. Okay. Any questions on like getting these set up here? Let me actually move this down. Let's do that. Hold on. Pause on questions. Let's actually look at this many-to-many. Okay. So on my rock playlist, if I were to call songs off of it, now I have all of these playlist songs on there. If I take a look at my jams playlist, jams.songs, I can see those two. And it looks like, just looking up here, place is on both jams and rock playlist. So if I were to say place.playlists, I also get those playlists that song is also on. So again, goes both ways because we put that relationship in both of our models for that many-to-many relationship. I can also look at place.playlist songs, and that gives me those playlist songs objects, but those they're not really all that useful for me. That's not really what I'm trying to get back, but you can also do that. Any questions on kind of this setup up here? Y'all are quiet this morning. All right. So let's go ahead, let's jump out of here and let's run this test and see where it takes us. Okay, so we don't have this route for our playlist index page, so we're gonna have to create that. Just looking at this test before we kind of go any further, looking at what we have and what we're gonna be expecting on the page, I'm gonna kind of preface this with like, okay, if these withins don't make sense right now, that's okay. We're going to have a lesson tomorrow on testing best practices that are going to go over this a little bit more, but I'll touch on them a little bit right now. So what we're saying with these withins is we're saying within this section on the page, with like within this, in this case, it's an ID, it's a specific ID for like a certain playlist. Within that playlist's ID, where they occur on that page, make sure that within that section, I see the rock playlist and I see these three titles of those songs. And then here within the country section of the page, that country playlist, make sure I see the name of that country playlist as well as this song title. And here it's saying within the jam section of the page, that jam playlist, make sure I see that jam's name, that playlist name, and then these two songs. I could also, I think to make this like a little bit more robust, I can make sure that I don't have content of Place Heaven, Don't Stop, of Chicken. I could also say down here, like, make sure that I do not have content of Heaven, since that one isn't on this playlist. And we'll just do another one down here. To not have content of Don't Stop. I'm all right with that. Just make it a little bit better. Make sure that what I'm not expecting to be there truly isn't there. So let's go ahead, let's follow through with this issue that we're having here. So visit/playlists, we'll go ahead to our routes and we'll have this I'm gonna pull this down here, get/playlists. And we're gonna say this is going to our playlists. It's gonna go to an index action to display all of our playlists.
You have a typo on playlists.
Thank you, playlits. All right, and then let's go ahead and run this. And we are missing this playlist controller. So from our routes, we can't find this controller. So we're going to go ahead and create that controller. So I can find it. Playlists controller, playlist controller.rb. And let's go ahead and say, we'll go ahead and define it in here. Oops. And then just kind of like taking this little step further, it's going to be looking for that index action. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in there as well. Okay, we need a view for that. So we're trying to, since we have this get that's going to this action over here, it's automatically looking for a view to render. So we'll go ahead and create that view up here. Let's create a folder for playlists. And in there, we'll have an index.html.erb. And let's just, I'm going to run this, make sure that I'm getting to an issue, an error of can't find the things on the page, make sure that my model, my view controller, all of that is all connected all right. And yeah, sure enough, so I have this unable to find the CSS of playlist 16. So that's something that I'm going to have to create with just like a section tag on my page, and to be able to describe every time that I play or that I print out playlist information, I'm going to wrap that in a section that's specific to that playlist so that I can test it a little bit easier. So I'm going to do like a little bit of kind of dream driving here as to what I would expect this view to look like. At the top here, I'm just going to title this all playlists. And I'm going to assume that in this view, I have access to all of my playlists in something called @playlists. I'll send that over from my controller. I'll have to define that later. So I want to print out, if I like go back to this test, I want to print out a playlist's name. And then I also want to print out all of their songs. So I think this is going to be kind of like an iteration within an iteration of like going through all of my playlists, printing out their names. And then within each of those sections that I'm printing out that playlist name, I also want to print out the songs for each of those playlists. So let's go ahead back to this playlist index page. And I'm going to say playlist.each do every playlist or everything in that playlists array is going to be a playlist object. And I want to print out the playlist's name. So we'll say playlist.name. The error that we were getting, though, was that we couldn't find the CSS on the page. And the CSS was unique to whichever playlist that I was printing out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap every time that I iterate through a playlist, I'm going to wrap all of that content that I'm trying to put to the page within a certain unique section tag. So in here, I'm going to say, let's wrap this in a section. Let me pull this up. And let's say that this section has a unique ID for this part of the page. For this would be, I think, what did we call it? Playlist dash whatever that playlist's ID is. So in this case, we'll say playlist dash. And then since this is Ruby up here, so we're trying to get to this block variable, I'm going to put this in visible ERB tags to be able to get this to print out to this part of my HTML. And we'll just say here playlist.id. So every playlist has their own unique ID, so they'll have their own unique section identifier. And that should kind of get put into this string here. I'm going to run this and see if it was able to find that CSS. Okay, before we even get to that, we have to go back and kind of fill this in a little bit. Undefined method each on this nil class. We've never defined @playlists. That's something that we're going to have to define in our playlist controller. So in my index action, we'll go ahead and say @playlists is playlist.all. So gather up all of our playlists to send off to the view. Okay, and I've gone past that error of not being able to find the CSS. So I was able to find the section on the page it was looking for, and now we're getting kind of to the bulk of printing out things to this view. Expected to find text, this must be the place, in classic rock. So it looks like the only thing I have on the page so far is the playlist's name, but I also need to make sure that I'm printing out all of the songs for that playlist. So within the view again, after I print out the name, I'm gonna go through this playlist. The playlist has many songs. So for each of that playlist songs, playlist.songs.each do, they're going to be a song object. I want to print out that song's title. Yeah. And that's all passing. So we have all of the playlists on the page and all of their related songs listed underneath each of their names. Let me pull up this test to the right just so we can kind of have it available for questions. What questions do y'all have? Alex?
So should we, like in our projects and such, start doing these like CSS blocks?
Yeah, I think it's a great way to be able to test specific parts of your page. I think in your first project, just looking at your projects yesterday, I saw a lot of people say things like, expect page to have content 2, to be able to like check that the age was there or something like that. But if you can be really specific, because that 2 might have appeared somewhere else on the page and it might be passing and you never printed out the age. Mm-hmm. Right? So to be really specific and be like, okay, but within this pet's specific part on this page, within that section on the page, is this age :2 present? Is that there? So it helps you be really specific. It also helps, and again, we'll go over this a little bit more tomorrow, but it also helps. I wonder if some of you ever ran into this issue of like, you try to click on a button, but you have multiple buttons that look the same on a page, and it'll say something like ambiguous match, found more than one button called this. And so that way you can say like, well, within this section, click on this button, like where there is only one button of that name.
Yeah, I had to use that first a few times.
Yeah. Yeah. So this will definitely come in handy, and you'll I think it takes a little bit of work to get used to, but I think it becomes a little bit more natural the more you use it. So I would suggest getting into habit of using it, especially on pages like index pages where there is a lot of repetition. Derek? Oh, I think you're muted. Or can you all hear him? Okay. Let's go ahead and use the chat, Derek, if you want to put your question in there. I was like, what? I don't know how to answer what a nabber is. Navbar, should that be one section ID for all pages? One section ID for all pages. I'm not sure I understand what you're asking. Yes. Yeah. Are you saying just like a, this is hard right now. No, it's okay. In your navbar, I would definitely have it wrapped in its own section so that you can kind of like style it in its own way and have it separate from the rest of the body of your text. But I don't think I'm fully answering your question. Maybe if you rejoin and yeah, let's try that. See if we can answer it in a little bit. Eric?
Is the within specific toward section tags, or can you use them for other tags?
Any tag. Yeah, the only thing that it's specific towards is this here. So you're just trying to target. In this case, we're targeting an ID. I could have also targeted a class by just putting that period there. And you can, not that you do this very often, but you could also say within, like if you only had one thing called section, I could also just say here within section. So that would like actually target the actual tag, the element tag. But that is I don't know why you would do that. Because you'll probably have more than one of those elements on the page. Other questions? I think we are at time at this point. Cool. Let's go ahead. Mike is teaching the next class. Let's take a 10-minute break, come back at 11:10. I'll give him or he'll have his own link for the class, and we'll make sure that's in the calendar before 11:10. I'm going to stay on
here. Let's stay here.
Oh, okay. Mike, how do I then get my recording to be separate from yours?
You just hit stop recording. I'll record locally and upload it.
Okay, cool.